La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Welcome to La Lanterna podcast. Benvenuti, everyone. This is episode 50.
What? My mind is blown. Are you serious? 50 episodes?
Yes, well, in theory, as I said last episode, it was 50th last one. Today's the officially called episode 50. So we have in plan a couple of things that will be or can be a surprise throughout the pod. We're not going to release any type of disclose any secrets that we have ready out there, but it can be interesting. I didn't share this with Matt yet, so he's like, what's happening here?
We've been audited.
We have quite a bit to talk about. First of all, welcome Frosinone to Serie A.
That's right. They officially have qualified. I think, was it their win and also Bari's result that put them through? I think both of those things needed to happen, or was it really just the win for them?
Bari had to not win.
Yes, that's right.
I had to think about it.
I mean, what an incredible campaign. I mean, I think with what Grosso has done with that lineup, and not one that was heralded or tipped by many to make it into Serie A for sure, including us, it was kind of the Cinderella story that never really stopped happening really this season. We were all looking at them and scratching our heads and wondering, when is Frosinone going to really fall? And to their credit, they have stayed pretty much in pole position for most of the season, which is really remarkable. And what a great job really that whole team had done in doing that. So yeah, a fair congrats. I think it's a deserved promotion for them, but hopefully we can nick them for first spot in the next few weeks. We'll see.
You're absolutely right. Grosso has done a remarkable job. He took the reins of the team, I believe it was 3 years ago or 2. Obviously, it shows the continuity. We talked about, I think, this already a couple of times, but it shows that the continuity definitely makes a huge difference. Also for the players, they only got a few add-ons for the category, so say the B players themselves, so to be more ready for the season itself, and it showed it. So we can see that, as you said, they were consistently almost throughout the whole entire season. There is no big name there, but I think similarly to what Gilardino has done to Genoa and Grosso has done obviously to Frosinone, it's something to shake his hand. I've already reached out to Ferdinando from Kick and Cleats, if you remember from the first
episode. Yes, absolutely.
So he's definitely pumped to come on, not this episode, but the next coming up. He's already pumped for the promotion of Frosinone.
So this, I think, is actually remarkable. So to your point before about Grosso having the time and the continuity, maybe it's not a surprise. He's the longest tenured coach in Serie B. So he's been in charge for 2 years, a month, and 10 days, according to Transfer Market. Thank you, Transfer Market. Would you guess like the next longest tenured coach in this entire division? It's Attilo Tisser at Modena at 1 year and 10 months. And also, I think you could call Mignani also is basically, I think he's like 9 days less than Tisser, so that doesn't really count. Gorini, 1 year and 9 months. That's absolutely incredible that you look at like all of the clubs in this division, and the longest tenured coach has been there for a little bit more than 2 years. And to your point, it probably really does matter because this guy has gone through how many transfer windows is that, where he's had a chance to find players, to have a system, to have an approach to play. And we've already seen some sides. Cagliari's changed managers. We've seen it happen with other teams, in some cases, having managers fired and come back to the same team in the same season. Of course, we're no stranger to that. You know, not at all to take anything away from Frosinone, but I think that's kind of incredible that 2 years and 1 month is the longest tenured coach in the division.
No, that's incredible. That makes it even more special, as you said. Italy is unfortunately and is known abroad where the coach is the first one to kick off the ship, right? Almost immediately when there's issues, something that you don't see too often in the other leagues. I guess that's a characteristic of our football and we have to live with it.
I mean, look, at the very least, it makes things kind of interesting, but it's kind of crazy.
So match day 35, Frosinone mathematical promotion now sitting at 71. The games are not over yet for who is going to be winning the championship.
That's right.
Because while it's a mathematical promotion for Frosinone, that means that they cannot fall on third spot, essentially, or
Correct.
Bari surpass them.
Yep.
But Genoa is sitting at 4 points below the leaders right now with 3 matches to go.
Yep. And maybe worth noting for those wondering. So we saw, of course, Frosinone confirm promotion to Serie A. Of course, the primary goal for Genoa this season is that exact same thing. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit in the table right now and the first couple of teams in the top, but obviously Bari sitting below us, we are 6 points clear of them. If I'm not mistaken, a win this term and another Bari loss would put us up as well in an automatic way.
I haven't really played around the numbers, but I even think a tie for them and a win for us would make it +8
with 2 games to go.
So with a Bari loss and any result of Genoa that is not a loss, it's done for Genoa as well.
Pretty big stuff.
It is. And that's one thing that is quite important. And it's good that we actually are talking about it right now, because I'm hearing a lot of mugugni, as you have learned what that word is. And for whomever is started to learn and listen to us recently, that's a Genoese way to say someone that is complaining. And a lot of complaints because of the tie. We'll get to the result as well. But, firstly, Genoa has tied at Bolzano 0-0. Quite an interesting match and tough as well. Mind you that Südtirol has tied with both Genoa and Frosinone, and it's quite important for their story.
Yes.
In this year, they're still hanging tight on the 4th spot. They are sitting at 7 points now below Bari, but they have to be very, very, very careful because Parma is creeping up very fast, sitting at 2 points below Südtirol.
That's right.
And Cagliari, for that matter, are sitting 3 points below Südtirol. So how does the playoffs work? Serie B overall, first 2 spots are directly promoted.
Right.
Frosinone has got the first spot of direct promotion, and Genoa has a good chance for the 2nd spot. Bari is almost guaranteed based on the numbers that I'm seeing because it's 7 points above Südtirol. They're guaranteed the 3rd spot. 5th will play against the 8th. 6th will play against the 7th.
Yes.
The winner of each one, I don't know now exactly who goes against the 3rd and against the 4th, but will play against those. That will be on a 2-legged. 5th through the 8th will have that extra, or round 1, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, for anybody like completely new to this, I mean, you're doing a great job explaining it, but you basically, if you're in the 3rd or 4th place, it's more equivalent to like in maybe like North American sports, like the bye concept, where you're not playing that first round of fixtures, you're just playing the winner. You're still going to have 2 rounds, right? Because it would be of the teams in the playoffs, there are 6 teams. You whittle that down to 4 teams. Then, of course, obviously only one of those 6 ends up going up with Frosinone and whoever, hopefully Genoa, have the 2nd spot.
Just to round that up, the 3rd and the 4th will play against the winners of those matches I said before. And then the winners of each one of these 2 last matches will be the grand final to be the 3rd and last spot for the promotion for Serie A.
Yes. So it's a lot of games played for that last final spot going up to Serie A. So you definitely want to have the easiest pathway possible in order to get there, because it's not an easy way. Right.
Quite different and a lot easier, I guess, in a way to explain. It's in less matches as a consequence is for the playouts. It's 4 teams that go down to Serie C, which is the 3rd level division in Italian professional soccer. Serie C, or also called Lega Pro. The last 3 are directly relegated to 3rd division, while for the 4th and last spot are going to be played 2 legs between the 16th and the 17th. Right now, we are seeing actually weird because you have 15th, 16th, and 17th spot all sitting at 38 points.
Yeah.
Which are all battling for the playouts. So one of these right now is out of it, which is Cittadella because of goal differential, while Brescia and Cosenza seem to be, at least this is the one that I'm looking at, I don't know if you see anything differently, are the ones that are right now sitting in the playouts spot. Perugia, Spal, and Benevento sitting at 18th, 19th, 20th with 36, 35, and 32. I was looking at some stats from previous years, Matt, and honestly, if you look at the bottom, it's probably one of the most competitive. Even Benevento is not out of the games yet. They can still reach that playouts area.
looking really just purely from 15 through 20, it's 6 points that separate. And those are three separate teams from 15, 16, 17, as you just mentioned. You have, right, Cittadella. For some reason, some charts have Cittadella and Brescia flip-flop, which I don't understand why, because Cittadella clearly have the advantage with goal differential. But Cittadella, Brescia, Cosenza, all on 38 points. Two of those teams go into the playouts. One team is safe. And then, of course, you have Perugia on 36. In the 18th spot, that's an automatic relegation. Spal on 35. And then Benevento at the foot of the table at 20th at 32. But hey, they win 2 games, and all you need is for one of those 3 teams to lose 2 games.
One thing that I always find it amusing, at least from my perspective, is looking at the form. Genoa's form has slipped just a little bit, only based on the fact that within the last matches now there's 2 ties rather than 1.
2 ties, but still unbeaten. Yeah, right.
Still unbeaten for, I would say, for all 2023.
Every match except, I think,
for Parma.
Yes, that's right.
Having said that, if you look at the run of form of all the games, of all the teams, you can see it quite bizarre. Like someone that was going very well, like Pisa, now has 4 losses within the last 5 matches, which is perhaps the worst right now. But I have to say this one right off the bat immediately. Venezia. Do we want to talk about Venezia? They were sitting at the bottom. Remember that. We were like, oh my God, what happened to them? It can happen when a team gets relegated down to the 2nd division. It's so hard, and maybe they are tired. They just don't have that pump anymore and so on, and they were sitting that down. And remember, we were talking also with Marco Rinaldi for a couple times, and he was also shaking his head. At first, we were facing Venezia right off at the beginning, if I'm not mistaken. It was still fresh, and he didn't know very well. The second episode, which was the first match for leg 2, when Venezia was sitting down at the bottom, he was just like, I don't know what to say. It's just like,
I actually must think that it has to be a very frustrating experience for Marco right now, because Venezia, to your point, like it was very bizarre seeing them at the bottom of the table or in the relegation places. They've won 6 of their last 7 matches. They just absolutely crushed Modena 5-0. They've played maybe a somewhat favorable fixture in this last stretch where they've been really successful, beating Ascoli, Como, that one loss being against Regina, and then of course victories against Palermo, Ternana, and now Modena. We were kind of thinking we're going to see this type of Venezia for most of the campaign. And a lot of the goal scoring and some of the things that are happening there, I actually at the beginning of the season envisioned them to be kind of a side like this, where you see maybe more attacking play, maybe there's not as much defensive stability per se. I think we have to talk about Pogliantano too. Hopefully I didn't butcher his last name, with the famous, now I think it's become a routine thing. How many weeks has he done it, where he scores a goal, goes and has a cerveza with the fans after the match? So
he has become my idol. It's just like something that you would never see it from any professional football player.
It's awesome. I mean, it's something like, obviously the fans are into it too and everything else, but it's just like such a cool thing to see a player like really kind of embracing the fans and being part of the team story. And a guy that's had a fairly kind of interesting professional career himself. It's awesome to see. And look, at the very least, I think Marco and company can breathe a little bit easier and understand that they're not going to really probably be in the dogfight for any sort of relegation positions. But
look at the table though. That's why I wanted to bring it up. If you look at where sitting now, they're sitting at the 10th spot, but they're sitting at 45 points. What's the points of the last playoffs?
Well, it's true. 38, 7 points. So it's possible. If they
lose. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
They're sitting on the 10th spot, 45 points. But what's
the play-ins?
Playoffs.
Yeah, right.
1 point below.
That's crazy.
With Regina risking to get other points deducted.
Right.
And 3 matches to go.
So this is totally the magic of Serie B, though. I mean, we were just talking about this, right? Like in any other league, you see a team that's down at the foot of the table and they go on this run of form like we just talked about. And you think, okay, they're getting these points. Well, surely they're safe. They've done their job. Like, one, these guys have a chance for promotion still. The season is not over yet. I didn't even think that could be a possibility until you look at the table and you see that they are a point off of not only Regina, but also Pisa on 46. And to be fair, Ascoli has 46 as well.
That's 2 spots, exactly.
2 spots, 2 different spots in the playoff positions, either 7th or 8th, and maybe Regina drop out of that if they get further penalized. So they have a chance after all of that craziness to at least give themselves a chance at promotion. And I think in the wildest of scenarios, they also have a chance of still getting relegated because they are 7 points clear of the highest play out team. And I do not believe this will happen to Venezia. I'm sure Nero Verdi are probably shaking their head at me right now, even mentioning a potential relegation, but it's mathematically still possible if they drop points in each of their next 3 games and one of those teams in that kind of cluster gains all of their points, they could be back in that same scenario. So again, probably isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But wild season in Serie B. And I don't know, hopefully we do see a little bit of drama at the end there. It'd be kind of fun to see Venezia in the play. I feel like if they end up being there, you have to say they deserve to have been there.
Because of that rush. And the same with Pisa, right? They were at the bottom too, but they managed to come all the way up too. Yep. And I wanted to add one more thing, besides the fact that I think it's highly likely that they're going to be even touching that play out area. But Poyampalo, or how I'm butchering it,
that's good. You did better than me. Poyampalo.
He reached La Padula as the top scorer of Serie B right now. 17 goals after his 4 goals. 4.
Was he not a January signing? Am I making that up?
No, I don't think so.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not. Hold
on. I'm trying to figure this out right now. He might not have been. I might have had that wrong. No, he was bought he was August.
A summer signing.
There was a summer signing. Wouldn't that be insane if he really was?
Out of the blue, fine, thanks. Like a lot of what people would say, well, that's 4 goals in the last match. Anybody can reach those numbers by doing that, right? But you still got to do it, number one. Number two, I think that if you compare it to La Padula has quite a few, at least a few that I can think of, penalties. They still count, but it's a little bit different. But at the same time, he's the top scorer right now at par with La Padula. So I'm rooting for Poyampalo.
I mean, everybody's got to be a little bit like he's the fan favorite at this point.
So we talked about the standings. We barely touched the fact that teams that are going to be fighting in the last 3 matches for the last spots in the playoffs, as we talked a few about Pisa Regina sitting at 46, while Ascoli at the same points, which is our next opponent, is at the same points of them. Then immediately below, we have Venezia and Palermo at 45. And not to forget, you still have Modena at 44, Como at 43, with Ternana at 43. So they're not necessarily outruled as well.
I mean, they're not at all. They're literally, Ternana at 14th place is 3 points away from the last playoff spot. Again, granted, there's also Ascoli on 46 points as well. So you have 2 teams to kind of leapfrog there. And their goal differential is pretty poor. But it's still 3 points. And if, a win and a draw to a couple of negative results to either of those teams, maybe they find themselves in there. So
And the cool thing is that you see that the 14th spot may aim for the 8th because it's so tight.
Yeah, it absolutely could happen. I am really, really, really curious to see what this table looks like after 36 matches. When you get into that part of the season where there's, obviously after this match week, there will only have been 2 match weeks left in the entirety of this season. And I hope we look at this table next week and we are still confused about most of these positions and who's going to be where and who's safe and who's going down. And
I think we will. I mean, no matter what, today it's almost impossible.
Right.
Next week, it can look maybe shaped a little bit different, but you still have 6 points after that, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention after Ternana, which is sitting at 43, there is now the first dip. 5 points below is sitting Cittadella. So that's the other group that is fighting now for the bottom. So no team is sitting tranquil in the middle of the table wondering what are they going to do with the next matches.
Crazy.
Insane, beautiful, but it's fantastic. It's seriously an amazing, underrated, underevaluated league. 100%.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's quickly go through match day 35 before we get into the match against Südtirol. So it opened up on Sunday. Mind you that most of the games were played on May 1st. May 1st for many countries around the world, except us for North America, is a Labor Day. So that's why most of the games were played on Monday, if anybody asked themselves anyways. But I thought to share that. On Sunday, April 30th, we had 2 matches, which was Spal Perugia. Both, if you remember from last pod, we were talking about that was like a battle for the bottom. And they actually turned out to be a tie. It helped none of the two because they're both still sitting down at the bottom, even though it did move a little bit the standings. Second match was Cagliari-Ternana. So that was a highly expected match for Cagliari to turn back their form, because essentially lately we kind of seen too many points dropped by the guys from Ranieri, and they managed to win the match against Ternana 2-1. Then the whole lineup of matches for Monday, Como-Palermo was another one that it's part of those groups of teams that I mentioned to you that are trying to go for the playoffs.
That's right.
Next is Brescia-Cosenza. So unfortunately for our friends from Cosenza, that was a loss for them. And surprisingly, Brescia's spell right now is doing very well. Their form is doing very well, with 3 wins in the last 5 matches in a tie, while Cosenza has lost a little bit of a form with 1 win in the last 5 matches, while they were doing quite well a few match days ago, if you remember. Then we have Südtirol Genoa, which obviously ended 0-0. Benevento Parma 2-2. That was another highly expected match, because Parma aiming to consolidate their 5th spot, almost aiming for the 4th spot. But Benevento, as I said to you before, not giving up.
Very true.
Then we have Bari Cittadella, which all spotlights were on that match, weren't they, Matt?
Oh, man. I mean, I think it was a really, really big match for both ends of the table, and it ended up in a result that obviously it put Frosinone through. I'm not sure if Jake and the Cittadella group are super excited with the result, but I'm sure maybe knowing going up against Bari, it being a tough task, at least getting something out of that match is very critical for them. And as you mentioned before, as it stands at the moment, they are at least above that last play-out place.
I reached out to our friend at Cittadella USA. Of course, he was shaken after that match. I didn't see the match itself, obviously, because it was at the same time of our match. But if you look at the highlights and if you look at the statistics, it's showing 19 shots for Cittadella versus the 8 of Bari, and 6 shots on target for Cittadella versus the 3 of Bari. And a penalty not given to Cittadella, but you have to give a monument to Tommy Mastraiello for that goal at the 84th minute that made not only Cittadella fans super happy, but obviously all the Genoani on our side. But yeah,
of course.
It on the paper, it looked like that Cittadella deserved to win. After that, we had...
And not, I think, worth saying too, not the first or the second or the third time there have been some interesting results in the Bari camp. I'm not going to put any conjecture out there, but I kind of am right now. I am not as much on the mafioso camp as some others have maybe said in the chats or otherwise. But regardless, a good result in the end. With cold water on your face, maybe as a Cittadella fan, it feels a little bit better. But I could totally see it feeling like a missed opportunity as well, given the statistics and the chances had and everything else.
It's interesting that you brought up the fact of the comments around Bari. Obviously, I've been reading throughout, especially in the second leg, comments on the Bari side against Genoa. Their belief is that Genoa is being favored compared to them.
So we're kind of looking at other sides of the same mirror right now, I guess.
I guess everyone, brings to their own plate what they ever need to be, and they have lens perspective differently. Most of the time, I'm trying to not be biased. Obviously, it's hard because, of course, my heart will beat always Rosso Blue like yours. But at the same time, looking at it from outside, it doesn't look like that to me. Actually, it mostly seems the opposite, but I like to see it more, hear more comments from a body. I would think not necessarily an ultra, but a Bari unbiased as much as possible that can be fan.
Yeah, agreed.
Then we have, after that one, was Ascoli Pisa. Pisa trying to stay afloat within the 6 spots of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But as I said before, their form is not doing that well at all. 4 losses in the last 5 matches, and the other one is a tie. So that made them drop quite fast, still hanging in there, but dropped quite fast in the playoffs area. Yeah. Ascoli, on the other hand, as I mentioned before, again, they have reached the same points of the last spot, but it was not a team that I was expecting them to see or fight for a playoff spot, even though that was always their campaign from the beginning.
One step closer. Yeah.
Then Venezia Modena, incredible because Modena is not doing that bad. I mean, they haven't been running on a great form, but they haven't had any losses. But a 5-0 against Venezia at Venezia, mind you, that was quite astonishing.
Crazy performance, yeah.
A wake up from Venezia.
Mm-hmm.
Last but not least, another match that we were watching. I was obviously hoping for Frosinone not to go to Serie A, but mostly it was for gaining on that first spot.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've seen the match. It was under torrential rain, so it was not an easy match.
Mm-hmm.
But Regina played awfully. A very ugly, not mistake. I'm talking about a red card from Regina.
Yes.
The guy in the box slapped with his arm the back neck of a player of Frosinone.
It was a very weird play. Like the guy was behind him. It wasn't even like they were going for, he's defending a corner or something. It just seemed like he had been beat, and he literally, that's exactly what it is. He's behind him and he kind of slaps him.
The game is stopped, I think, at that point. They're just recouping, going back to, I don't know. It was just like bizarre, so useless. I saw also the comments from our friend Dan, and he said, I do not want to see this player playing for Regina ever. So that tells it all.
I could totally understand why Dan would feel that way. That was a crazy decision by him.
End of the match, obviously the one man under 3-1 for Frosinone. Very well deserved win, direct promotion to Serie A. Now, Genoa, Südtirol, or better, in Bolzano, Südtirol, Genoa. The match was interesting, was hard, was well played by both. Actually, I'm going to open it by saying that the match seemed quite balanced. Genoa had better chances, not clean, but had a lot more ownership of the ball. If you actually look at the statistics, it shows that Genoa has 64% versus 36%. It seemed even higher. At the same time, their defense is rock solid. If I had to recap it in a few words, it was a match against two very solid defenses. It showed once again that we have a little bit still of troubles up front, but that was also dictated by that strong defense that we saw from Südtirol. What do you think this part?
No, I think your summation is right. I mean, when you look at some of the player rankings too, I mean, you see guys like Badel and Strootman come off as some of the more higher ranked players on the Genoa side. And obviously those guys can also be involved in, our forward play and those types of things. But I think usually when you see them as like the top guys, you probably assume more of a battle type of a game. Shouts to Josep Martinez once again for really having an amazing performance. There were two really big chances by Cittadella. The one where he's jumping up in the air and coming across and blocking the ball. Crazy. Look, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, maybe there's some people complaining about a draw, but I think he had a phenomenal performance, and it possibly could have been no points earned had he not made one of those really great saves.
Great match by Martinez. I think he was the best. For MVP this match, it was quite hard because a lot of players had a very solid performance, including Gudmundsson, including Badel, and including Sturaro. I would say these four at par if I had to pick one, just because of this amazing season that Martinez has had. But, it was beautiful to see him playing, essentially.
Yeah.
However, there's a beautiful shot by Gudmundsson. I thought it was going to go in. Unfortunately, the post is better than the goalie, so it didn't go in. But there are two missed penalties given, one in the first half and one in the second half. I've heard different angles, obviously from the Genoa side and so on, but some say that it's fair that both were not given. Others say it's preposterous. Others are sending to hell the referee, Di Bello. Like a whole bunch of things. And the fact of VAR not calling the one on Ekuban, yes, but the one on Masiello, no. So first half, the ball is in the box. Mm-hmm. Genoa's attacking. Once the ball, I can't remember who was hit by, Masiello hits it with his hand. It's not in a natural position. It's a little bit detached from the body, and he adjusts, and you can see that the ball changes direction.
I mean, that one for me, I think when you look at this one in particular, it's really, really difficult to understand how no one really gave a look at this, because it's one of those, it's not not just one of those, oh, I've seen penalties given type thing before. Like his arm is almost parallel to the ground, and it's not like it's tucked against his side or something. Like it is out there, and the ball clearly makes contact with the underside of his arm. And so, like for that not to be given, I mean, it looked like it was clear that he was trying to make contact with his arm. And that just like I don't know how much clearer you can really get with that. I don't recall in real time exactly how it looked, but it's that one is I really can't understand why that was not given.
To me, it looked like, and I don't accept that with technology that we have today, these things are overseen.
Yeah, I mean that's a very fair take as a fan. I mean, like we have this set of protocols and this technology now in place so that we can right wrong decisions. And I am absolutely of the mindset like with cameras and everything else, if you slow everything down frame by frame by frame by frame by frame, you can see things that maybe aren't exactly there or that maybe don't deserve the punishment under the letter of the law because it's probably not exactly what the law is meant to prevent. But this is just something, I just don't know how else to say it. Like, it's not like his arms were close to his hips. It's not like he had even had them up at his chest and the contact was that way, which, by the way, if that was the case, it would still be handball. But his arm is all the way out. And it is obvious that the ball is making contact with that. So for that not to be something that said, hey, we probably made a mistake here, it's very weird.
Let's move on. We have to accept any type of decisions that the ref takes. You move on and you play. Then there was actually a goal by Südtirol. I was waiting for it to be called off because it just looked like a whole bunch of rugby people pushing and pushing and pushing until they got into the net with the ball. So
it's a proper scrub.
Exactly. It looked like a scrub. Exactly. Connecting to the second penalty, I still find it very bizarre that 22 matches, not even one penalty for.
It is very weird.
Okay, yeah. But that, those are stats. It can happen. It's bizarre, but it can happen.
Right.
Second half, right at the end, Ekuban with the ball right inside the box gets tripped.
Yeah.
Di Bello says that it's not. VAR checks it without having Di Bello going to see the clips or whatnot to no penalty.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. I mean, it's just like one of those ones. I guess maybe they could have thought that Ekuban went down too soft or something. Is that the angle?
All I can say is, again, we have to accept it and that's fine.
It's over, right?
It's over. At the same time, 1 point is still important. It still leaves us to 6 points from Bari. But I have a feeling that either it's in the stadium or in Serie B. I don't know because I don't know enough about it. There's not enough cameras. The job for the VAR people is not easy if you don't have enough elements.
Yeah, and overturning a call makes it harder in that case because you have less information. You can't double check this. You can't really say with certainty that this was or was not the right call. I feel actually better about our systems as a whole. That's why people are not making those decisions. They just feel like I don't really have enough angles or anything to feel like I can overturn what the referees made live a call for. But you worry a little bit if it starts to become everything. And I don't know. In this case, hopefully that's what it was. But still, it seems like we were kind of hard done by on a couple of calls.
For sure. Let's listen to a clip sent to us by Enrico from our last episode from the Genoa Club Vietnam on his take on the match against Südtirol.
Hello everyone at La Lanterna podcast. I predicted that this would be a tough game and it would end in a draw, as I thought Südtirol would clam up and shut up shop, park the bus as it's known. It was a strong start from Genoa, who seemed in control of the game until Südtirol had these brief flashes of dangerous attacking where they risked taking the lead, and it was a great save from Martinez to keep the game 0-0. Fortunately, in the first half, we weren't able to get the breakthrough. I really liked our midfield this game. I thought that Badel and Strootman did an excellent job of controlling the pitch, and their ability to remain cool under pressure is remarkable and I think often undervalued. And then Sturaro was a terrier chasing the loose balls, and it was really good to see him back. And as usual, Gudmundsson was our star player and he nearly dragged us to victory. Scandalous decision not to give a penalty on Ekuban, I thought, but luckily Cittadella were able to take a point off Bari, and otherwise I think the Genoa fans would be rightly furious, but all's well that ends well. And dare I say it, Serie A is within touching distance. As always, Forza Genoa and Doria Merda.
Thank you, Enrico. That was awesome. Doria Merda always. That ends match day 35. We are going to be facing Ascoli next. And then the last two matches are the hardest ones, where we face Frosinone first and then at the very last Bari. Now, we all are hoping that Frosinone will help us, quote, I'm using that quote unquote, but it never happens. I'm nothing against Frosinone, of course, because why would they? They want to still show that they are the leaders of the league, but they have nothing to lose now, right? Let's go to the break. We'll have our guest coming up and we'll talk about the match against Ascoli. My name is Fabrizio Cardone and I approve this message. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the pod, we had a special something for our 50th episode. And here it is. Gathered a few, not too many, but just a couple of notes from our friends, past guests, some of them. Mind you that most of them wanted to participate. Trying to gather and collect everything together was a little bit hectic right now. But here we have a few notes from some of our past guests.
Hi, Matt and Fabry. This is Marco, Scotland's #1 Venezia fan. I just wanted to say congratulations on your 50 episodes and, of course, congratulations on your about-to-be promotion to Serie A, which is very well deserved. You've been great, especially since Il Gila took over the reins as manager. Hopefully, we may even join you thanks to the wonder that is Joe Poyampalo. You're just lucky that you don't have to play us again. But seriously, well done on the 50 episodes, and hopefully I'll be able to join you for a Serie A chat between our teams next season. Forza Venezia.
Ciao and congratulations to my two best friends, Fabry and Matt. You took me from a non-fan to a supporter planning his first trip to Genova. Been a fantastic journey this season and looking forward to a banger next season. This is Eddie down in Alabama, signing off. Forza Genoa!
Hey Matt, hey Fabrizio, it's me, Jake from Cheat the Calcio USA, and I wanted to congratulate you guys on 50 episodes of La Lanterna podcast. It was a really fun time and it was a blast filming with you guys for 2 games that we had here. Regardless of the result, I think it was brilliant to be talking just about Serie B and just thank you guys for helping promote it and obviously talking a lot about Genoa. But in terms of the Serie B season, it's been one heck of a journey. We still got, at the time of this recording, 3 games remaining. And regardless of what happens, I think it's been an unbelievably fun season to cover from a Cittadella fan, from a Genoa perspective, and just from a football calcio fan in general. So congrats guys, and avanti così.
Ciao Matt and Fabry, this is Jeremy Bowling here from Bari in Puglia, Italy. Many congratulations on this being your 50th podcast. That's quite an achievement and it was a great privilege to be asked to be on it. My snapshot of the Serie B season so far, well, it's been a fantastic achievement for Bari. Though I have to admit, I do think Genoa are going to get the automatic slot alongside Frosinone. So on to the playoffs. It's going to be difficult. Bari look like they're going to secure 3rd place, but watch out for Venezia coming up on the rails. Now that they've suddenly found a couple of goal scorers, they can be quite dangerous at the end. So it's going to be very difficult for everybody. And Bari do need to find some form. Anyway, good luck to everybody. And hope the 50th podcast goes well tonight. Speak to you soon.
Hi, Matt and Fabrizio. This is David Farini from the Serie A World Feed commentary team. Congratulations, guys, on your 50th episode of La Lanterna and your extensive work covering Genoa's rise back to Paradiso. Keep up the good work. Buon lavoro.
Hey, Matt and Fabry. This is Stefano from Charlotte, North Carolina. Hey, congratulations for episode number 50. What an achievement. Great job, guys. And let's see if we can celebrate something else this coming Saturday. Forza Genoa and Forza La Lanterna.
Thank you again to all the guests that were able to send in a clip, and also to each individual of our past guests without you guys, we wouldn't have had this podcast that we love so much. Thank you, every single person. Thank you again. Happy 50th episode to all of us. Welcome back to the second half of La Antena podcast. So we have a guest from my town this time around. So it's Toronto. Almost like if we look at the beginning, Matt, with when we had my ex-colleague.
Oh, yeah. That's for the first episode.
This time around, we have from Genoa Club Toronto. Welcome, Jake, to our pod.
Oh, Jake.
Thank you very much for having me. Finally, I made it.
I know we had a few instances that we were supposed to meet, then it didn't work. And, it happens. When everything is virtual, it's not that easy. Let's talk a little bit about you first, Jake. So first of all, Genoa Club Toronto, Genoano. Why? Yeah. Who are you? Why are you Genoano? Tell us all about you, Jake.
Let's start with the humble beginning. I was born in Fabry, which is a small town outside Genoa. Born from both parents, extremely big Genoa fans, to the point that I think that I was told that while Genoa played Liverpool in 1992 at home, my mom was pregnant in the stands with me. So I don't know if it was because of me why they won, but let's not get that. My dad moved to Toronto in 98, and then I followed him in 2008. I've been a Genoa fan, of course, by bloodline and by choice from when I was probably 6-7 years old. I have to say that for probably between the age of 4 to 7, I was a big Ronaldo fan from when he used to play at Inter. And then my dad said, listen, you can like a player, but you got to pick a team. You can't just like players. I said, okay. So I went to the stadium one time with my dad, and I fell in love with Genoa. I fell in love walking out of that time. I'll remember it was Genoa Dinese in Serie B. I was probably 6 or 7 years old. I went to the game, fell in love, and since then it's been my number one addiction / disease, because it brings you so much joy, but it brings you so much pain in a matter of seconds. Why to cheer for Genoa? Well, first of all, as a young kid I used to be a young kid, I'm 30 years old now, but being a kid from a small town from outside Genova, you have all these little township teams, but it's, everybody cheers for their hometown team. But the biggest city beside us was Genoa. And as per my knowledge, there was only one team in Genova. So
thank you.
I had to pick.
People remember this, put this black and white. Genova is Genoa, period.
Yeah. There is singers from Genova that made songs for Genoa, and not singers from Rome that make songs for small subdivision outside the city. Let's put it that way.
Very well said. It's so true. I remember Luca, your dad, when we went to watch matches. Obviously, that's when I got to know you. This must have been sometimes in the, I don't know. Yeah, I would say late 2000s.
Yeah.
When you came to Canada, essentially, I remember. But your Italian is excellent and your English is excellent. So I would say you're 50-50. When you're there, maybe in Italy, you feel more Canadian. When you're here, more Italian, or you feel more Italian? What's that?
That's a beautiful question, because so many people ask me, because since I've moved here at 15 years old, like in the golden years of my teenage years of me being an absolute little menace and learning and experiencing in life. But I will always be Italian. That will never change. I will always be Genovese. I'll always be a Genoa fan. But my three biggest difference that I can compare the two countries is one, weather, food, and lifestyle. Those are, for me, I think I call them the 3 X's, because they're so far apart from one another, but you find the good in both, right? The heat, because it's being a very light-skinned redhead that burns outside at 10 degrees. So I don't mind the cold winter.
So untypically Italian, right?
No, I'm still Italian, 100%. But I love Canada. It gave me so much. I joke around and say the Winter Olympics, I tend to be more Canadian. And then when it comes down to soccer, I say I'm more Italian. But the last World Cup, clearly I was more on the Canadian side. Because we didn't make it. But honestly, I love the place. I love the country. And, proud to be here. It's been one of the best decisions. That's for sure.
That's awesome. We have to convince Matt. As you know, he's in New York. I've been pushing him to come up.
You got to do it, man.
If it's not us going down to New York, or you coming up at Toronto, it has to be at Marassi.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a good excuse too.
That is even better.
So with respect to that, Jake, I'm sure I've been yelling about it on the pod like forever because us in Canada, it's very difficult to follow Serie B because there is no TV rights. I'm guessing you had a chance at least to watch, whether that is pirated. I'm not going to ask you, but you can say whatever you want, that you've been able to follow the season so far, have you?
Believe it or not, randomly, I had, what was it, the third game of the season in Serie B. My dad had a channel, like one of those that you can stream games, but, it wasn't the best. And one of my buddies that, gambles a lot, he goes, listen, if you go on Bet365,
I heard about that.
you can watch
the streams.
You don't need to bet on anything as long as you got some money in your account, which I literally put $1 and I go on it. You can go on the game, press the little video one, and you watch the game. It has no commentating. All you hear is the volume of the stadium.
Live feed.
You feel like the actual live feed from the stadium. And I love that. I literally have been bragging. I've literally commented on so many teams, Instagram account, sent emails. You guys have to do one with no commentating. Just put the cameras, let them follow it, let the fans and feel the experience.
Yeah.
And then my buddy tells me this, and I'm like, somebody heard my prayers. It's amazing. Honestly, I've been watching on a gambling site, legal gambling site in Canada.
Yeah.
And I've been watching it there. I love it because there is no commentating. Anybody can watch it. You don't have to speak English, Italian, French, Spanish, whatever language, because you're watching the sport. It has been frustrating, don't get me wrong, on the fact there is so little access to the Serie B season, but that's one of the unfortunate reality of Italian soccer from the highest league to the lower league. The TV right always been one of the biggest crosses that comes down to not being able to draw more attention to it. We don't have the TV rights that England, Germany, Spain has. I looked at it the other day that Crystal Palace makes more money in TV rights than Juventus does every year.
It's unbelievable.
And fourth last in the Premier League. And they make $18 million more a year than Juventus does. How can a team for example, I put a Genoa, a Frosinone, a Fiorentina, teams like this that you expect, okay, they're supposed to have TV rights. They're supposed to be easy to find the games. You can't. I know that unfortunately the world runs around the economy and money coming in and coming out, but for fans, especially for people around the world like yourself, me, Fabrizio, and the many that you guys have brought on the podcast and that you have talked about from Amsterdam and all these places, it's becoming almost like a self-preservation mission to try and find a way to run your team.
Yeah, it totally is. The French people speaking French so the language doesn't die or something. It's
I've watched a Genoa game in what was it? I think the language was either Dutch or German because I couldn't find any other channel and I just put it on mute and I watched it.
Yeah.
It's better that than nothing, right?
Yeah, listen. If not, I listen on the radio like I used to do all the time.
For the States, and I just learned this the other day from Matt, that they have obviously Hellbiz, which is this Italian scooter company.
This is so weird.
Yep.
And they actually broadcast in Italian for the entirety of United States, which is very bizarre.
Every single match and the replays and everything else. I mean, I'm spoiled because I can literally, there's a goal highlight thing where you can only watch the goals. You can do a condensed 10-minute version of the game. You can watch the whole game on demand if you miss the thing. So I can't really say anything. Yeah, thank you. It's actually more infuriating that you're talking about the Bet365 thing because all those things happen because somebody at Lega Serie B decided to do a deal with Bet365 to get the games, but they're just not going to cater to Canada at all. Like one of the biggest expat markets in the whole. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I even said that to Raffaello. So Raffaello was one of our senior guests because he's been with us for 3 times now. So he's in New York with the same city of Matt, and he's a Cosenza fan. So our brother is Rosso Blu, but from Cosenza. And as him, there's a lot of Calabresi in Toronto. There's a lot of other, secondary regions. Mind you that a lot of Italians immigrants do root, as you said, for the bigger teams, but for different, and even if they're not any close to the city. So it makes more sense because you're 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers away from Genova. So it makes sense to go for the bigger team. But when you're living in I was saying this to
Calabria, yeah.
Yeah, I was saying this to Raffaello as well. And he was like, yeah, that's not right. So you're like from Cosenza, and Cosenza's always been, like a Serie B or Serie C. They never even made it to Serie A. And he's like a hardcore fan. I love him for that, rather than rooting for the typical Juventus or Inter or whatever. So it's like, no.
Yeah.
That's what I love about and I'll say it not in a bad way, but the smaller, I always live by this rule is smaller teams have better fans.
Yeah.
We have to pay attention.
They're actually the ones that literally they're the driving force of the actual team, not only on a financial standpoint, but even support. Like you were talking about that, you guys talked about the previous game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, is from like Südtirol. Südtirol is a small town. Like Bolzano is a small town. Like it's nothing huge.
Right.
They have 7,000 people stadium, which we had 700 or 500 there. We filled up almost a seventh of their stadium. They had a packed place. If those people don't go up to the stadium, don't have people to, like, they can't pay for these teams to be there. They can't pay for facilities. They can't do any of that.
Right.
And those the reasons why especially these people, groups, fans, like I rather cheer for a small team but be passionate about it and follow it. And
I agree.
Something that resembles me than cheering for something that doesn't. Like I've always found a resemblance to cheering for Genoa because it's a port city. I have both of my grandparents. One on my mom's side, he was a welder for the Finicantieri, which they weld from cruise ships to military boats, both in Genova and at Riva Trigoso. And then on my father's side, my grandfather was a container holder captain. So I have both roots into the port. So for me, that's my team. That's where my heart goes. I can't cheer for a Juve. I can't cheer for Milan. I don't have anything attachment to it. There is no, okay, it's cool. They win. Do whatever you want. Don't get me wrong. Everybody wants to win, but I'd rather suffer and like do the whole process and be able to achieve something great, which not going to boost, but I think these guys are doing a very good job as the new owners as well.
That's
Absolutely.
a good point, Jake. Thank you for saying that. No, I wanted to ask, what do you think about the whole season in all, Serie B with 777 now and our new Genoa?
I found that this season, as a personal standpoint and like how I feel about it, I think going to Serie B was probably the best thing that has happened to us in probably the last decade because first of all, we still had this toxic, and like you said, like I'm not going to go back into what it was the past, but there was a very toxic environment that was almost like heavy to cheer for Genoa. Like it was becoming gross to the point that like it's every time they do something, it's like it's out there. You expect negative thought. The old ownership, I have mixed feelings. I'm not going to get into it, but like there's been a lot of good things done and a lot of bad things done. I'm going to leave it at that. It's part of the past.
I'm with you, yeah.
Water under the bridge. We move on. Honestly, new ownership. There is uncertainty at the beginning for everything. Everything that's new changes, especially because there has been a lot of examples in the past with many teams, many leagues, especially with the American stamp. They come in, change everything, fire everybody. But
that was the biggest fear at the beginning, anyways. For sure.
Yeah. I thought that they were going to come trying to sell everything, trying to do whatever they can, and then resell it to whoever was giving them the best penny on the dollar. And for a simple proof, there was that in January, when we were pretty much already know that we were going to Serie B, these guys went out there and spent like $33 million. Like you don't go make a commitment of a team that it's bound to go down based on your playing level, making that kind of commitment. One, the new season, I find it refreshing. I find a lot of people are falling in love again with Genoa. And that's the biggest feel in the atmosphere. Like, when they say love is in the air kind of thing, I feel that is the best example that you can explain. Like when they got rid of Blessy, and I didn't hate him as a coach. Yeah. I think that the team at times showed a little bit of good playing style, but at the end of the day was extremely repetitive.
Yeah.
Once Gilardino came on, of course, you're a fan favorite because of your past of playing on the team. Not a stupid guy. You won Champions League, World Cups. You won scoring titles. You won an under-21 European Championship pretty much by yourself. You're looking at a guy that knows about the sport and knows how to handle situations. I hope that he's not just a guy that is going to come and just for the season, because there's a lot of speculations and all that for who may come, or who may not.
Right.
That I don't even want to say the name of it because I don't want to get heartbroken. And honestly, my biggest point of view of the season, I expected that they were going to have a strong season. I was not expecting it to this extent that there's games that we absolutely dominated teams, and then there's games that we played the typical Genoa style that we're going to make our fans suffer until the 89th minute. The normal.
Ridiculous cross from Sabelli or something. I was like, how?
Yeah, like was the against Perugia was the day that Sabelli played his 250th game in Serie B. And the commentator's like, "Oh, one of the best players." I'm like, "Yeah, still can't kick a corner kick. If you see it, always short to the first." I think that if I spent 13 hours, go back every game he's played, 98% went to the first post, short to the defender to clear it.
It actually doesn't make any sense because when he's playing in the outfield, he always kicks them like way on the other end of it. It's just like how I don't get it, man.
But you do have to say that he's the perfect guy for the City B. He's the guy that I would say, if not most, all of the City T teams would want him. He's that type of guy that even though, as we say in Italian, piede quadrato, so it's like a squared foot. So that means that when he kicks it, it can go straight, but
anywhere.
Exactly anywhere. But the truth is, he puts all his soul in it. If we hadn't had him, like after Payats, after even Haps again, we would have been essentially. So thank God we had him. Sure, bad feet, great. I mean, I know we can, banter him how much we want, but I'm glad we still have him.
I agree with you. I believe that for the role that he had to play as a guy that had to go out there, grind kilometers up and down, do your job, be prolific on that side, not prolific in a scoring side, but like to create havoc. He did a very good job. Like I'll tell him that as much as there is times that I'd like to have my head, my foot, or my fist through the wall to be able to hit him when he's on the field and he does stupid things. But he did a lot of positive things this year, and I do believe that if we didn't have somebody that pushed on that side of the wing, especially like you said, after all the losses that we had on that side, we would have been in a lot of trouble. Yes.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, though, that his true role is on the right back. Well,
right. I mean,
originally he go on the left, right?
He came in for Hefty originally. That was how he. But I want to go back to Jake's earlier point, though, because I think we were talking about this obviously like at the end of last season. It was looking more and more obvious we were going down. I mean, it was looking obvious from the second match of the season we were going down last year. But, there was the whole thing about, is it really good for us to go down? Are we going to go down? And you never know with Serie B and everything else. And obviously, of course, in hindsight, and so far the way the season's progressing, it's looking good. I'll say that much, but it's obviously nothing secure or anything. It is interesting because it definitely, there feels to be much more of a unification. I mean, I know there was a recent incident with some of the ultras and maybe 2 or 3 match weeks ago, but on the whole, you've got positivity around the team. People are excited to watch matches. You are looking for
younger generations as well, right?
Participating. Yeah, you got more youth people. And I mean, even at the end of the last season, you saw actually some of that. So there was I think at some point, even last year, there was a little bit of they're going to try to break us because of how bad this season is, but we're going to stay together as a fan group. And that's just continued the entire season. And thank God we didn't capitulate and end up, if we started this season, not to pick on Marco again, but if we started the season the way the Venezia did and we were sitting at the bottom of the table, I feel like it would be probably total disaster right now. But it's been a good campaign and it's great to see the fans coming together.
Well, you know how Genova works. If we were at the bottom for a while or whatnot, it would have been a disaster. I don't know what happened in Venice, but if it had happened here, it would have been, I don't know.
Yeah. Don't even think about it. Yeah.
Exactly. What do you think also about the transfer market from this year, from the winter one?
Well, I think we should have got. Okay, I'm going to sound mean because of who came back. I was never a big fan of our captain, and I know we're not supposed to.
Hot take. I like it though. I like it.
It's not to shoot at the Red Cross. I'm not that of a Red Brigade kind of person, but we needed the help. I get it. Came in cheap. A guy that in the building. At the end of the day, is somewhat of a solid guy for experience. He is. I think they should have brought a bit more help in those areas that really needed it, like the left side. Trying to get another. I know they say that we have so many midfielders from Sturaro, from Bade to Strootman, but we have 3 guys that play the exact same. You take one out, you put another one that does the same thing.
Right.
Get somebody that maybe runs a little bit more, doesn't have to much better feel like the other ones do, but at least that gives you those iron lungs kind of situation. I do think that at the end of the day that it worked out because the people that came in were already solidified in the group and they clicked right away, which is the most important thing when it comes down from a December or January transfer, because a lot of teams bring in big name players or good players and then they don't glue and there was more mistakes than anything, and that caused you more headaches. And luckily that the system that was in place at the time made it keep going flawless to how it was working. Like, people know their role, people know what they have to do, come to practice. If you don't practice well, you don't play. I'm a big fan of Puskas because I love a guy that might not have the best feet, but the guy just goes out there and just hammers down and fights for every ball he plays. He plays with heart. When I was younger, I was a big Wayne Rooney fan. He spent 60% of his time playing midfield and defense when Fergie used to tell him, hey, you got to stay up.
Let me take advantage of that. I wanted to say that more so looking at Matt. So Matt and I are not necessarily like these big fans of Puskas, especially because of his last performances. But we had a fan that reached out to us via social media, a fan or a listener. He's a Genoa fan. He's not a fan of us necessarily, but that he was right in what he said. Don't necessarily always go against Puskas. He has done, thanks to his action, that we actually did the goal against Cittadella. So he's the one that built it up in order to get to that goal. So he was right. So we shouldn't, I mean, it's one of those things that you learn as a fan, I guess, and we shouldn't do, generically speaking here, but so I actually fall into it where I'm complaining about a striker because they're not scoring, and essentially that's not necessarily the best metrics in how you can evaluate a striker, I think, and that's what the issue we have, or at least personally I did have in the last several matches that we've seen him for a few minutes. Not seeing him score, it makes you, quote unquote, lightly saying hate him or dislike him, but truthfully so is like we did that also with Coda, obviously expecting this super striker from the last 2 seasons, having scored 20 and odd goals and so on, and he's like 10 now. But Puskas, at the same time, the guy comes in 70th 80th minute. It's not that you could expect him to do like 400 goals, but
yeah, I mean, I'll defend the Puskás hatred a little bit, because I feel like in some cases he's totally put a foot wrong when it's just like, dude, if you just play that ball in a normal pass, that's a clear chance on goal. But you're right, like, we don't always have guys that are really scrapping and fighting in that way. He's always kind of contributing, and he had several matches, like these last couple, at least prior to this last game, he wasn't on a good run of form, but he certainly had a good fair few number of matches even in this calendar year. So it's not like he's not had a great season for us. He's not a Ramu or anything like that, where it's just like, where is this guy and what is he doing? Like, he's at least involved in a lot of this stuff, and he has been positive more often than not. But anyway, yeah, I agree. It's a good kind of counterpoint to him. You know, you've got a guy who's always kind of trying to muck it up a little bit and get something going. And, well, I mean, as we were talking about earlier, that ridiculous Sabelli cross against Benevento, who's on the other side of that. So, you know, I get it.
Another very good example of a player that had the same type of season was last year was Ekuban.
Yeah.
Would not score, but god damn, that guy would come in and just
run.
He would just want, caused havoc. Unfortunately, if he finalized like 10% of the goals that he's missed, I believe we still would be in Serie A, but it's okay.
To your point, Jake, you're absolutely right. And you're like you're trying to break into an open door with the two of us when it comes to Caleb Ekuban. And essentially, even though he's not like that top scorer, he's the one that breaks the defense. He's the one that runs more than everybody else. He's the one that goes down to the sideline. He goes in the middle. He goes and recuperates the ball. Sure, he's super passionate. He's super like talented with respect to also the physicality. He's like, you know, he has that piede quadrato that we said before.
He definitely does, but just physically so different. And I guess like I was always because he's been out for so long in the beginning of the season. Of course, Blesson had trusted him a lot. Like I kind of assumed when he's going to come back in, he's going to be okay. He's going to slot into the first 11, but I'm not so sure anymore because I don't know how, like with the way Gilardino likes to set up, he doesn't exactly fit very neatly into one of those positions very well. You know.
I think it fits on Gilardino's formation after the 70th minute. He needs disruptor for a game. He knows what he's going to get. He's not the type of guy that is great to start a game and be the guy that's going to start setting you up, how you attack, how you forward, how you're going to hold the possession. He's not that guy. He's that guy that will run through the line, go for a deep pass or a long shot, and he's the guy that's going to fetch it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a game breaker in the sense of like physical specimen that's going to go out there and cause a ruckus, he's the guy. But he's not a guy like let's set up, let's hold the ball down.
That's true.
The other team comes to us. he's not the type of player. But love him. He plays with heart. He's good in my books.
Yeah.
So let's quickly go to match day 36. As I said, it's 3 matches left. The games are on. It's been beautiful. Serie B has been wonderful, entertaining. It's something just like undescribable if you're not willing to want to follow Serie B. 9 points left. We said that in the first half. Every single team has something to fight for. Maybe the only one that doesn't have to fight for anything anymore is actually Frosinone, because they have the mathematical win. Otherwise, everybody else has something to fight for, whether it's to get out of the bottom, trying to avoid the playouts, trying to get into the playoffs, or hang into the playoffs, or catch the second spot, as you know, for the direct promotion. Let's start with Perugia Cagliari. Perugia's form has been awful. They were at the bottom, managed to get out of it, and now they got suckered into it. Cagliari, on the other hand, Ranieri that was trying to aim for the second spot, and they obviously was buco nell'acqua, as we say in Italian, which is a hole in the water, which is impossible to catch. But obviously they are aiming to consolidate their spot into the playoffs. Are they going to be able to catch the 4th spot? They're only 3 points to Sud-Tirol. Regina Como, next one. Regina has been poorly performing after that silly game that they had against Frosinone. Nothing against Frosinone because they...
Well, just that red card was terrible. Yeah.
It was horrible. Rumors have it that they are going to even get even more points of deduction for the second stance of the tax not being paid. And Como, on the other hand, they're one of the other group of teams that are going to try to aim towards the playoffs as well. Their season has been a little bit of a yo-yo, but they're still in that group. They're at 43 points. Last one is at 46 in the playoffs. So again, for them as well, it's not impossible. Then we have Cosenza Venezia. Oh boy. So Cosenza got suckered into the bottom. They've been for a little while in the past anyways. Venezia was at the bottom, and now it's like 1 point to playoffs with that thrash match against Modena.
Yeah, that was a nice sight.
Then we have Cittadella Benevento. Cittadella, we know it very well. We had our guest Jake from Città Calcio USA not too long ago. This is their match in all, while Benevento is their last gasp to try to catch a little bit of fresh air to reach the playouts. This is the chance for Cittadella to scare away that playouts. Pisa Frosinone. Frosinone, we said, it's probably the only team that doesn't really need to do any. At the same time, Pisa is trying to hang in there because but at the same time, they're at the same points of Ascoli, as we said before.
Yeah.
And their form lately has been really suffering a lot. Next one up is Modena Bari. So we know Bari already is trying to win. Modena has had that awful match against Venezia and probably wants back into the game or something.
The game in Modena or in Bari?
The game is in Modena. So it's not going... This is probably one of the toughest for Bari. Next match is Ternana Sud-Tirol. Ternana has been doing quite well. They're trying to catch the last spot or the last few spots within the playoffs since the beginning. They've never denied it. Hence, also seeing that surprisingly sacking of Lucarelli and then calling him back and then coming back up again. Sud-Tirol, the Cinderella story that we've always talked about, continues to surprise us. We saw them against us last match day, even though are they fit for Serie A? But that's a totally different story, and that's not necessarily the reason why they're going to slipping or not. Genoa Ascoli is the match after that one, so we'll talk about that with the predictions in a second. Second last is Palermo Spal. So Palermo has been this yo-yo, question mark, city group. Spal at the same time is like help, help, and help. Second last, 35 points, 3 points to playouts, while Palermo is in that huge group of 1 point to playouts. Are they going to make it? Who is going to make it and why? Is it going to be the Ninja, Nainggolan, or is it going to be City Group prevailing? We don't know. Last but not least, this is Parma Brescia at Parma. Parma aiming for the 4th spot. We already talked about in the first half how important is the 3rd and 4th spot, trying to get that one. And at the same time, Brescia, after the win from last week, now they're sitting on the 16th spot and they're tickling whether to be out or in the playouts, which up until 3 matches ago, it was like, okay, you're doomed.
Yeah, unbelievable. How many teams have been at the bottom of the table? I feel like, maybe it's actually pretty much most of the teams from 15 down to 20 now, but there's been a lot of changeover at the bottom there. Brescia were at place at one point.
Half of the table.
I think 8 or 9 have been at least once in the last spot or in the last spot in the bottom 3.
And 2 or 3 now are in the playoffs.
There's been a complete flip in a matter of 8 games. Like from teams that were like, even look at Regina in January, they were like 3rd place. Now they're 10th.
They are 8th.
But they're a point away from 10th too, or 11th even if they end up losing. So yeah,
with 2 points penalty and some other question mark points of penalty that we still don't know if it's going to happen or not, with or without recourse. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with that as well. Okay, let's dive into the next match. We're looking at match day 36, Genoa Ascoli. Let I remind you, 3 days before the match, it's sold out, gentlemen. The Ferraris I have never heard sold out in so long. It's just
I was there at the last, it was sold out.
Where were you?
Genoa Venezia when we came to Serie A.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. That would have been an incredible match too.
I don't remember half of it. I was young.
Doing it right.
You couldn't see anything because the whole stadium was the choreography.
Well, that's true. Yeah, if you're at the Gradinato, you're not going to see.
It was amazing. But talking about Genoa Ascoli, that, believe it or not, I have I couldn't find the actual ticket, but I do every time when I don't have a season ticket and I go back home to Genova and watch games. Mm-hmm. I always have a ticket and I keep the ticket and I put it in a little book.
Love it.
One of the games that I've gone that I still remember was in 2004, was in deep November, okay? I went to watch a Genoa Ascoli when Genoa won 3-0, when Zanini, Milito, and Stellone scored.
Wow.
And Milito scored an unbelievable goal.
So may this be a good omen. May this be a good omen.
Yeah, exactly, right? Man, that's incredible. People forget that, Genoano don't forget, but obviously the more casual remember Milito as an Inter player, which I still get angry about. But this guy was with us in Serie B. Come on, man.
Well,
fucking cool.
How many
it's amazing to see him play too.
How many times have we said this?
Talking about my God, starts with an M.
Who's that?
I don't pronounce his name in vain. I miss him.
Diego.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable. I'm so jealous you got to see him live. That's incredible.
Okay, before we go to the match, talking about Diego. So our always and forever stay in our hearts because he came to Genoa 2 times and every time he came, he did a fantastic year. Today, so we're recording part 2 on Wednesday. It's the anniversary of the very famous 2 contro 0, which who knows Italian and who is Genoano knows that this was a derby, Genoa versus Sampdoria, that Genoa won 3-1. Jake was there apparently. Oh my God, the shivers, the goosebumps, the emotions of that derby. I don't know. Jake, I'll leave it to you.
Palladino davanti a Castellazzi, porta vuota, Milito, rete, sono 3 gol sul derby e impazzisce Marassi. I'll never forget.
Prende velocità Criscito, il cross, palla sotto porta, riesce ad allungare Mesto, poi un'acrobazia Milanetto, ma non è finita, è un assedio, Palombo perde l'equilibrio, rischia il dribbling e perde palla, arriva Milanetto, attenzione, 2 contro 0, avanza Palladino, davanti a Castellazzi, porta vuota, Milito, rete, game over sul derby, impazzisce Marassi.
Honestly, I've been lucky enough to been to quite a few derbies.
Just for who is not familiar with that match, one that we just said before, won 3-1, a tripletta, so 3 goals by Diego Milito, and this was with Gasperini.
Yep.
So no tears for all the bit of the Gasperini, but the last, so it was a beautiful goal. It was 2-1. Sampdoria was pressing like crazy to tie. So we were close to injury time or just into injury time. And we say in Italian assedio, which is like almost all 11 players of Sampdoria in our half battling and kicking and putting it in and continuously hammering us. To a certain point, then a lot of Genoani, there's a love and hatred with this guy called Milanetto.
First was Juric when he went on a slide tackle.
That's right. Juric. So Juric, and we'll talk about him a little bit later, but Juric, slide tackle. Milanetto gets the ball. He kicks it towards the midline where all players are in our half. So there's no rule of offside or whatnot. You have Palladino on one side and Milito on the left. Palladino gets the ball. He goes almost on the right side of the box. So this is that comment that Jake said before. And then he goes towards the goalie. The goalie's kind of going towards him. But then Palladino, selflessly, amazing player he is, he gave it to Milito, goal. It was
right after the Gradinata Sud.
And the entire stadium exploded.
I think it was the loudest cheer I've been part of.
I would say yes.
It actually, like, that's the one thing that I remember about the game. Beside that, both sides of the fans were absolutely hostile in those years. Like, we were the famous incident of Via Montecatini in Genova or Montinelli, one of the two, where they met up like 200 Genoa fans, 200 Sampdoria fans with helmet. They started fights prior to these derbies every time, and it was hostile. Like, you felt the tension going to the stadium. The moment that the third goal happened, it was just like a volcano. It just popped.
It was huge.
Oh my God, man.
And I'll never forget it. That was probably the loudest cheer I've ever heard. Just insane.
It was
a couple extremely famous sporting events. I've been to the Quailander shot when I was inside the Air Canada Centre. I've been to the Bautista home run in Toronto. Yeah, the backflip. I was both of those don't compare to the loud of the Gradinata Nord after.
That's crazy. Domes in both of those stadiums too. That's insane.
So that was to talk a little bit about our Diego Milito, but Ivan Juric. So why did I say before a connection to Ivan Juric? Ivan Juric, we had him as a coach 3-4 times. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Thanks to our predecessor owner.
Preziosi had favorites.
But we never hated Ivan. Ivan Juric for us has always been a great player. He's always been there, and we've always loved him. So we cannot hate him ever. You know. And now, after his experience, he did well at Verona, and now he's at Torino. The reason why I brought this up was today was the anniversary, as I mentioned, about that derby, and today Serie A was playing. So Serie A. Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm looking at Matt. Then he's putting the hands towards his ears, but essentially Torino played at the Marassi against Sampdoria, and they won 2-0. The second goal by our one and only former youth, actually one of the youngest players that ever played in Serie A.
Yeah, youngest ever goal scorer, right?
And the youngest goal scorer, absolutely. And his name was
Pellegrini.
Pietro Pellegrini. He scored the second goal.
The emotions or the what I think about the player and what happened in the situation.
First the goal, and then what happened.
I don't know if they were trying to play like an offside trap or they weren't really paying attention, but he was to the left side of the field. He gets a long pass, hooks the ball, keeps running towards the goalie, towards the center of the box, moving kind of towards the right side of the box, like the right side of the field. Burns pretty much the two defenders that were late in following him. Once he passes the goal, he takes the shot, scores. Then he decides, and this once again, I don't know if it's a coincidence or just reoccurrence. It's always under the Gradinata Sud for Sampdoria. I apologize for bringing that up again. It seems like it happens often. But he decides to score and runs away from the box towards the center of the field. And then he reminds himself that I used to cheer for Genoa. I played for Genoa, and I don't care if anybody's telling me that it's not true. He turned around and I want to hear it, baby. Come on, sing it to me.
Pellegrini picks up the ball, running straight through past Ravaglia and tucks it into the open net. The former Genoa man celebrates under the Gradinata Sud, taking real pleasure in that goal.
Honestly, man, that was probably the best thing that has happened today. So,
oh my God, it's so great. The pictures of that are just absolutely fucking unbelievable. And then so I know this was going on last week where there were Genoa fans at Fiorentina, clad in Fiorentina stuff, and then singing like Rosso Blue chants. It seemed like maybe that was happening today in Torino too. I mean, obviously, well, it wasn't in Torino, excuse me. It was at Genoa.
You're right, Matt. So they sang that song, especially from Annalisa at the Fiorentina match. Or even Come cazzo si fa tifar la Samp as well. And and then as well, even with Torino, which are our former great gemellaggio, which a friendship still remains. And they were all going with E come si fa tifare la Samp. And then they went with that song from Annalisa as well. Ultimissima, falitissima.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sing it, but
it's a little bit vulgar to say, but before jumping on the podcast today, I was following two gentlemen that I follow that have Genoa accounts. The Torino fans are actually saying Uffizi de Bagasce against the Sampdoria side and followed up with a Genoa flag popping out of the stands at the end of the game, and they were singing Genoa, Genoa, Genoa. I'm like,
that's beautiful.
That's awesome.
For who doesn't know, I mean, it's going to be difficult. Like, we don't have any censorship, but Figi de Bagasce, it's a Genoese to say son of
a bitch.
Yeah. So pretty funny.
So let's go back to our match day 36. Guys, gentlemen, this is last 3 matches. Very super important. We have our first match ball with a win and a non-win by Bari. It's a done deal.
Or a non-win, a tie or a loss. Yeah, right.
So if Bari wins, if Bari loses or ties and Genoa wins, it's a mathematical at that point.
Right.
Ascoli has been doing quite a well turn of form in the last 5 matches. I see here that they've won 3 matches of the last games, tied 1 and lost 1. So Jake, what do you think about Ascoli?
I think that, first of all, like you said, like in the last 5 games, Genoa won 3, tied 2. Ascoli won 2 ties and a loss. So they have literally 1 game difference compared to us. If they would have tied or won, they would have had the same record than us in the last 5 games. They are a very annoying team because they attack very well. They have experienced guys. Dionisi is one of them. Can't stand them. Serie A background. Another guy that used to play very competitively. Got a couple of good guys on offense. Gondo's one of them, which is probably their top scorer as well. I think that I don't like to talk about an absolute, but if we had to show who we are, Saturday is the day that you show it. Saturday is the day you make a stand and you make a statement where you have to say, we're going to beat you on the field, in the stands. We don't care who comes right now or what the other teams do or what the other teams get in favor or not in favor. That's their life. We got to think about us and what we're doing game by game. I hate predictions, but I will say it.
We won't go to the predictions yet.
Okay.
Hold that for yourself. No, that's fine. Matt, Ascoli wins at Parma, wins at Modena, wins against Brescia, wins against Südtirol at home, wins against Pisa at home. What are we expecting from Ascoli at the Ferraris?
I mean, it's just as Jake was saying. I mean, look, it's going to be a really important test for us, obviously. But I do want to, because we were talking a little bit about Bet365 earlier, I found this fascinating, and I think I kind of have an idea why. So, like, I'm a nerd, and I'm usually looking at like SofaScore or FOTMob or something before these games, and they bring in the betting odds on SofaScore from BetMGM, at least in the States here. And I've never seen it this is probably going to freak people out, but like the books are really heavily favoring Genoa in this game, which is somewhat unusual, I think. It's plus 600 for Ascoli to win. It's plus 280 for the match to end in a draw. I think one of the things, I'm not totally sure about this, but one of their defenders, this guy like Boraghin or however you pronounce his name, I think he might be suspended from the match with a red card. I'm not sure when he picked it up because it wasn't the last match or how long. Maybe it's like the 3rd game that he's serving or something. Obviously, if they've been able to win these last few matches, it maybe doesn't matter that much. But I kind of feel like one of the best players on that team this season, I think, has been this guy. And so that's the only real reason what I can think why some Vegas might think that Genoa are going to have more from this game. I still think it's going to be a difficult one for us. And it's one that we have to be, this sounds like such a cliche thing to say as like fucking podcaster, but like we have to be professional about this match. Like we really have to be executing the game plan. We can't be coming in and thinking it's Ascoli. And to be fair, Ascoli have not at all had a bad campaign this season. This is not a team that's been up and down or whatever. Like they've been solid. So it'll be an interesting one.
Let's not forget that as soon after Gilardino came in, we had the win against Südtirol, but that 0-0
the first game. Yeah.
That 0-0 against Ascoli was like an awfully ugly match that we played against, just because of, to Jake's points, that it's like an awful team to play against. And it's whether it's because they put that barricade in the back, or as we say in Italian, they put the pullman, so the coach bus at the back, and just block entirely the goal, which
means something else if you're a Monza player. Same bus.
But nevertheless, it's going to be a tough one. Close to the wrap. Let's talk about predictions. Who wants to start with that one?
You guys tell me. You guys can go ahead. I'll let the host go first if you guys want.
Matt, you go ahead.
All right. I think I feel like I maybe have been a little bit conservative in the last few matches, but I again still think it's going to be like we were talking about before. Even though it is a match at home, there's always this thing about playing at Ascoli, which we experienced earlier in the season, as you guys talked about before, and how difficult that was. I think Gilardino knows his side obviously much better now at this point than he did in his second match in charge, and I kind of just feel like we're in position to get something from this game. If they don't have Boroghin, I think that is something that could really be interesting for us. I still think the match is going to be, I don't think it's necessarily Genoa dominant that I'm envisioning how it's going to go, but I think we'll look like probably we have the upper hand, maybe a few more shots on target. I think we may still need odd heroic or two from Martinez, but I think it's actually going to be 1-0 to Genoa. My predicted goal scorer for this one, I mean, I've kind of kept it mainstream for a while, but I do think probably it's Gudmundsson that's the goal scorer.
All right, Jake.
I can't even give it what I personally think. I think it's going to be a very standstill first half. It might be 1-1.
Yeah.
And Genoa breaks off in a 3-1 in the second half.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, and if I have to say personally who's going to score, I think we're going to get one from Koda after a while he hasn't scored in front of everybody, because he's been one of the guys that scores at home, just can't score away. I do believe that I love this guy, Draguzin, the defender.
You get another one.
That's a good one.
The third one, I leave it to the hope and the soccer gods to make it happen. I'm okay with the first two. And I think for the one for Ascoli will be Dionisi, because he's always been a pain in my side for years to come. And he's always had. And he's that kind of midfielder / trequartista that comes from behind, and he's not bad at shots from outside the box. So I hope that with the help of 33,750 Genoa fans that will be in attendance, that they will play their heart out regardless of what it is, and not to think about the other game. Your World Cup is that day. Don't worry about anything else. That's my thing. And my only concern is that Gilardino won't be on the bench, but for sure he'll be in the vicinity, because he did get one game suspension from last week, from the previous game, because he got a red card. No reason, but
the bello reason.
Yeah, it's honestly, man, like, especially I've noticed the Serie B. I don't know if I'm not trying to be impartial or anything like that, but
all right, so I agree with both of you. I'm somewhere in between. I do think that we will still be scoreless when it comes to the fact of conceding goals, because I think that we need that. I don't know why, but I want to keep it more than anything else. But on the other side, I do agree that with Jake, the fact that Gilardino is going to be a little bit of a pain for us, even though he's going to be there. Technology is there, right? So he's going to be behind the glass while everybody's going to be on the bench. So it's not necessarily going to be a major difference, but it can be felt indirectly in a different way. We don't know yet what's going to happen on the left side with Criscito. Let's don't forget that he had an injury against Südtirol. Of course, we have Sabelli, which was not used against Südtirol because he had a little flu. Other than that, everybody is out there. Bocci, which is our young talent that we saw that was starting to explode. I can't remember now against what match, maybe Ascoli.
Wasn't that Bari all the way back?
It was a while back, and the poor kid had 1, 2, 3 games at the most, and he had that bad injury, and he did have half of a time against the last match in Primavera, so he is ready, and most likely he will be called up. We have 5 cautioned, so that means the next yellow card on these 5 players means they're going to be not playing the next match, which the next one will be against Frosinone, which people say they're going to let us win. I don't know. I'm not going to be betting on that. And that means Sturaro, Aramu, Gudmundsson, Badel, and Strootman. I think these are the 5, if I'm recalling that on top of my head. And that's 2/3 of our midfield.
It's a huge part. Yeah, it's a huge part of the squad. Oh, man. And we're playing, to Jake's point earlier, we're playing Ascoli, and it's going to be one of those type of matches, too.
I'm going to have Ridge play.
And Ascoli is one of those teams that it can bring out the worst of all of us. And I think while with Südtirol, we didn't see too many yellow cards happening, actually none from our side, but I think Ascoli is going to come out quite a few. But I want that omen coming from Jake. I'm going to take out that 1, and I want a nice 3-0. Maybe I can see a 2-0. Just to even it out. And I do see Coda. I like the fact of Jake saying that the fact of Coda being a goal scorer at Genova. Sold out, the 12th man will be behind the team, which gives courage, but also gives nerves to the players, to the fact of, God, I have to make result, right? But we have a buffer. That nervousness did show at Südtirol, but it was also a very well-structured team compared to Ascoli. It's just like a very awkward, ugly opponent. Very different. And we're playing at Genova and not in their own turf. 2-0. Gudmundsson. I want Ekuban. I'm sorry. If he plays. If he doesn't.
I would love that.
If he doesn't, I'll give it to him.
We're due for an Ekuban goal.
And I think it's the time that he just takes down the whole stadium with a goal. Let's do it, baby.
Yeah.
Third, let's go. I'm coming on the Fabrizio bandwagon right now. That's my third. I didn't name it. That was the one. Let's go.
The guy deserves it just for effort, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, this is a wrap. If anybody wants to reach out to you, Jake, obviously they can reach out to the Genoa Club Toronto, but we will definitely put your accounts, whatever you want to share with or whatever accounts you have in our posts. But at the same time, thank you very much for joining us. This was fantastic to have such a great Genoano with these experience that you've been sharing with us. We want this omen. We want this positive.
That's right.
We need it. First of all, thank you to the both of you for having me on the podcast. It's probably one of the first ever time that I've ever been on a podcast. I honestly listen to probably 90% of the things that I listen. It's not even music; it's just strictly podcasts. From Joe Rogan to sports to I really like the one that you guys do. Another one from Genoa is the Realtà Genoana that I really like. Bunch of guys, mostly in Italian, but honestly, man, the whole podcast experience is awesome. I loved it. Like I told Fabrizio before doing a little break, I said this is awesome. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on. And honestly, guys, can we please close it up this weekend? I don't.
At the Marassi too, like
3 matches before the end. That would be phenomenal.
Get the temple on fire, baby, please.
I love it.
I love it. All right.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. It was an absolute lovely time. It was my pleasure to be on, and hopefully to be on in the future. Maybe we celebrate a promotion. So
the honors is definitely ours, Jake. Absolutely. We'll always have you whenever you want. So everyone, just reach out to us if you want to join the chat, the English chat, the We Are Genoa chat. It's fun. It's great. And drop us a like, a comment on every social media. We have it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And never forget, always and only, Forza Genoa. You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.